Hello, everybody. I'm just making sure the stream is running well, and then I'll be getting started here in just one moment. All right. What's going on, everyone? Hello to, everyone joining us here in the chat. Um, kind of a impromptu Monday evening stream. Obviously, I don't think I've ever done a stream on Monday, let alone a stream this late before. Um, so definitely excited. I don't know how many people we're going to get joining us here, but if you're with us, definitely leave a like, subscribe. Don't be hesitant to join in the chat. We've got several topics that we're going to be going over today. Very Liverpool heavy uh, stream today. Um, there obviously since my last stream on Saturday afternoon, there's been several things that have happened. Um, so we're going to be getting into that in just one moment. But yeah, I guess we'll just kick this off right now. Obviously, the big news coming out of the weekend is Luis Diaz will no longer be with Liverpool Football Club. And if you were with me on my stream on Saturday, I said that this was going to happen. I'm not surprised. Probably many of you aren't that surprised that Luis Diaz is leaving Liverpool. I think that when a manager comes out and says, "Hey, we did not include Luis Diaz in our team because his future with the club is unknown," I think everyone and their mother knows what's about to happen, and it happened. Now, I think the most important aspect of the Luis Diaz transfer is obviously how much money we got from him, for him, rather, and then also too on top of that, the reaction of the fans and what the future is going to hold following this transfer. Now, number one, 75 million euros for Luis Diaz. I think that that's a really good deal. From what I've read online, and obviously it's completely speculation because it hasn't come from Luis Diaz's mouth, it hasn't come from the likes of Arne Slot or anyone from Liverpool, but apparently they wanted to work a deal with Luis Diaz, but the money that Diaz wanted from Liverpool was not consistent with what the club was willing to pay for him, so he opted to look elsewhere. Bayern Munich wanted to come in, obviously, and bought him. And I tweeted out as soon as it happened, wish him nothing but the best. And that's honestly and truthfully how I've felt the entire time. I think a lot of the coverage surrounding Luis Diaz and him leaving Liverpool has been that it's completely and entirely money related, which I don't actually believe is entirely the truth. I think in a lot of respects, the Luis Diaz thing probably also came down to the fact playing time, because I think Luis Diaz makes a good bit of money, to say the least, and I don't believe that it just strictly came down to money. I'm sure money obviously played a role in the entire situation, but I just refuse to believe it was entirely about money. I've been pretty vocal on the fact that I don't believe Arne Slot could guarantee Luis Diaz regular, recurring first team football. And due to that, I think he was probably, whether it be encouraged by the club or Slot, or he took it upon himself to make himself available to other clubs. Can't really blame him. 28 years old. He doesn't have that much left of his professional career, but he certainly has a couple years, and if he's going to be playing, at the highest level, I think he deserves the right to go out and look for other opportunities. I think that that's just what it comes down to. And I think if a club like Liverpool is saying you're not going to be starting regularly, which that's my assumption. I have no basis of that, contrary to popular belief. I don't have a direct line to Arne Slot, but that's my own theory, is that I think how often Diaz would be able to start probably was a big contributing factor to him wanting to leave the club. So yeah, and I think look, I have always held Luis Diaz to a high regard. I thought he's always been a good player. 75 million is outrageous for him. I'll be the first one to say it. We bought Luis Diaz for 45 million. I believe we had him for 2.5 seasons, maybe 3, but I know he was a winter transfer. 2.5 seasons, and we've gotten, I believe, 29 Premier League goals out of him. For me, if Luis Diaz was to have gone for 60 million, I would have thought that would have been sufficient. But Bayern came in for 75 million. And he's going to a team that, unless we play Bayern Munich in the Champions League, he can't really hurt us. Now, can he? So, that is what it is. The issue I have with the whole Luis Diaz situation has nothing to do with Luis Diaz. It has nothing to do with Liverpool Football Club. It has to do with how far too many, what I would call modern Liverpool fans, have handled the situation. Now, I want to preface this by, if you're under the age of like 15 and you took the Luis Diaz leaving Liverpool thing hard, I don't blame, you're a kid at that point. When you're a kid and your favorite player leaves a club, I remember when Torres left, I was like, it just ruined me. I think comparing the impact that Luis Diaz had at Liverpool to even Fernando Torres is outrageous, because he's been a good player, he's been a role player, but my issue with what I call the modern Liverpool fans is, for whatever reason, it seems as though anyone that leaves on relatively good terms, we just like to call a Liverpool legend or a club legend. It's frankly damn near embarrassing. I think Luis Diaz, always a hard worker. I think his contribution to output has come into question. One game in particular is last year against Manchester City at Anfield. Everyone likes to talk about the run that he went on. Oh, but he beat Kyle Walker and someone else. Yeah, but we like to forget about that he had a opportunity squared up at the top of the box and put the ball over the bar. And we would have won that game and potentially pushed for a Premier League title had we won that game. So I've always looked at Luis Diaz as a player who, he's not like a lot of the wingers and forwards that we've had over the past couple of years, in the sense that, the Mo Salahs, Sadio Mane's, rest in peace Diogo Jota, Bobby Firmino, they had their goals and assists, I felt, spoke for themselves. I think Luis Diaz was a player that I always felt was extremely talented, especially when it came to one-on-one situations. But unfortunately, in my personal opinion, his ability to create output like the players that I just named hasn't been up to the same standard. Not to say he isn't a good player, not to criticize the guy or anything like that, but these fans, it just annoys me to no end that if you've been watching the sport for quite some time, you'll know that this Luis Diaz transfer is a pretty, what I would call, run-of-the-mill standard transfer when it comes to Premier League top sides. He's a very good player, not great. He's definitely replaceable. He looked at an opportunity outside of the club. The club said the transfer fee looks good. It's almost like amicable on all sides. Like, well, I don't think any fans have any ill will towards Diaz, but to the over exaggeration of some of these players, like, oh, he's a Liverpool legend. No, like, I'm sorry, and it just comes down to the fact that, like, the guy could have stayed at the club, and if he wasn't, if he was told he was not going to get as much starting time, he could have earned more starting time. He didn't. He's moving on to a club where I'm sure he's going to get a lot more time than he would have at Liverpool in the upcoming season. It is what it is. But these fans, frankly, some of them are just pathetic to me. And it comes with the modern footballer. I mean, listen, I'm a guy who literally makes football and Liverpool content online. I know how it is, but some of them, it's like the overcritical I can handle. The over dramatic are just insane to me. You know, Luis Diaz, a very very talented player, very always worked hard for the club, but to hold him to the regard that some of these people have held him to, it's embarrassing. I'll be honest, it's embarrassing. Some of you really need to take a step back, and you know these are the same people who would ship Andy Robertson right out the door. When Bobby Firmino left, they barely cared. It's just because Luis Diaz is leaving at his prime. So it's almost like this emotion for these players is masked, because it's not like because they're in their prime. These fans, these modern fans, they have these admiration, but these players who have put in a lot of time and a lot of dedication to our club. Once they have a dip in form, the disrespect mounts. But like I said, nothing against Diaz. I think he, like I said, hard worker, always played for the badge. Wish him nothing but the best, unless he's playing Liverpool. That just is what it is, you know. But moving on to probably my second biggest issue with modern Liverpool fans. We sell Luis Diaz for $75 million, and the Rodrigo talks start ramping up again. Before I start on this, Horder said Diaz is 28. We get prime money for him. He wanted to leave. Horder, I couldn't agree more, brother. I really couldn't. But the problem that I have is, what you're saying is entirely true. Ashley said good transfer in my opinion. What you're saying, Horder, is completely on the money. We're getting good money for him. $75 million. He wanted to leave, and I said it earlier in the stream. I don't know if you were joined at that time. I don't think we could guarantee him regular first team football. I think going into the beginning of the season, I think he would be our first choice off the left wing. But going forward, we have so many options that we can slot into that front three. No pun intended when I say slot. I wonder if Arne had to have a conversation with him and say, look, you're going to have to battle. You know, Cody Gakpo came alive at the end of last season, you know. But moving on, once we lost Luis Diaz, you see these modern fans online. The first thing that they start going for is, we need to bring in Rodrigo. We need to bring in Rodrigo. Now, look, in a perfect world, Rodrigo wearing a Liverpool kit is advantageous for all of our fans. And everyone's going to love that. I'll be the first one to admit it. But the problem that I have with this is some of our fans, the people who don't have a sense of reality, don't have an understanding of what we need at Liverpool Football Club. And I can tell Horder is not one of them, because he said next Isak in and Gahey. You are on the money. I think all of these fans that are making a push for Rodrigo have no sense in their head. We have way too many options off of the left wing. And, for the likes of Cody Gakpo, Florian Wirtz can play off the left. Ekatike can play off of the left. That is why we've let go of Luis Diaz. And rather, you just mentioned it there, Horder, about Gahey. We need a center back. We sold what's his name, the young kid, Jarrell Quansah, earlier in the transfer window. Joe Gomez apparently just got hurt. I'm not entirely sure how long he's going to be out for, but not for nothing, he can be completely awful half of the time. I think Joe Gomez is either going to be Maldini or terrible. I can't even think of the opposite end of a comparison. For whatever reason, Joe Gomez just decides to be garbage every once in a while. We need to bring in a center back, if not two. Obviously, Gahey would be my number one option. I'd love to see it, but I think we also need to bring in another center back. just to bring in some reinforcements. I heard you say Rodrigo on loan. That would be awesome, but I don't think Real Madrid would want to do that. And unfortunately, with Real Madrid, I gotta be honest, man. I just don't want to give them any money. How they dealt with the whole Trent Alexander-Arnold thing, poaching him to let his contract expire, and then from what we've seen, they're attempting to do very similar things with Ibrahima Konate. I think, and granted, like, if we had a real need and there was a player from Real Madrid who was really interested in coming to Liverpool, we absolutely should do deals with them. But currently, I don't think that that's the option we need. I think, like you said, Guehi and at the center back position is our need right now. Joe Gomez has been at the club for quite some time, and we've given that guy a lot of opportunities. Unfortunately, he's either injured or not good enough. And I hate to be the one that, with our fan base, far too often, I see our fans just not really having the ability to call it as it is sometimes. Are we really comfortable going into a game against Arsenal, Manchester City, PSG in the Champions League, these big clubs? Are we comfortable with Joe Gomez at the back? I'm not. And I know most of our fans aren't. And we also have a situation that Ibrahima Konate could be out the door. We see David in the chat. No way. Yo, what's going on, David? How we doing? Horder, Alonso is our agent in Madrid. Gomez is injury prone. I would love if Alonso was our agent in Madrid. But I don't know. I don't know. I think that I don't think so. I think that that club, when it comes down to it, I think far too often it goes past the manager, it goes to the owner with Real Madrid, and I don't think that they really want to do business with us if it's advantageous to us. I think if we, like, hypothetically, right, we can beat it till the cows come home, right? We have actual Liverpool fans with sense in the chat today, right? We need a center back, and we're so far along on the Isak transfer saga that abandoning that would make absolutely no sense. I've seen some fans talk online basically saying, I don't even want Isak at this point. We just need to focus on center backs. I agree, but I think we would be fools to not just go after the Isak transfer, right? Once we get him in, then I don't think we need to worry about forward options at all for the remainder of the transfer window. Even if we lose a forward option, we don't have to worry about it. But we need to bring in one or two center backs. And, you just said, I am 100% on the hate on Real Madrid. Me too, man. 100%. The Trent Alexander-Arnold thing was a homegrown talent in Real Madrid playing our club to be a fool. And now we can see it kind of being the same way with Ibrahima Konate. I hope I'm wrong with that, but the writing is on the wall with Ibu that he's going to run out the remainder of his contract and go to Real. It happens all the time. David said, bro, I've had one too many drinks. Have the day off tomorrow, so celebrated England's Euros win with my mates tonight. I'm going to dip immediately. Good night, bro. Hey, have one more, brother. It's never one too many. Cheers, dude. I'll see you on the next stream. Ryan Wilson said, I don't think we need to worry about forward options for 2 years if we sign Isak. I agree. I think when I said 1 year, it was probably generous, to be honest with you. I think if we get Isak, we are so in the... Just hear me out, right? Especially considering that we signed Salah to a 2-year deal. We have Mo Salah, Ekitike, Alexander Isak, Cody Gakpo, Florian Wirtz can play on the left wing, and currently, I mean, it's kind of up in the air, but we have Darwin Núñez. You know what I mean? I think we see this far. We see a player that attracts a lot of fans like Rodrigo, where it's like clearly he's an extremely talented player. unbelievably talented. We all know how talented he is. But that club is going to charge us an arm and a leg for him. I'd rather put the arm and the leg money towards Alexander Isak, which I think we're already going to do anyway. And then after that, hopefully we can bring in center back options. I'd love to see Mark Gahey at Liverpool. After that, I don't really know. I'll be honest with you. I think, to be fair though, if we bring in Gahey and we have the likes of Konate, Van Dijk, and Gahey, the next center back that I think we would bring in would probably not be, an option that would be expecting to play that often. I think it would be a guy that we saw like Nat Phillips several years ago, how he fit into the Liverpool team. But I mean the Rodrigo thing, it's almost I gotta be honest with you guys. It feels good to come in the chat here and see Liverpool fans who actually have some sense. Because you go on Twitter, you go on TikTok, even YouTube to a certain extent. You see these people that are saying we need to bring in Rodrigo, chuck the money at Rodrigo. But mate, if we sell Chiesa, Darwin, and Elliott, though, I don't want to sell Elliott. Then we need more forwards. Yes, I agree. If we were to, okay, Chiesa, I don't think we're gonna sell. That's been a big one on the radar. That has seemed as though we're going to sell Federico Chiesa for a while. I don't think we're going to sell him. I think Chiesa's going to stay around, especially he's only there for one season. I think Chiesa will stay. Darwin Núñez, I've given up predicting what's going to go on with Darwin Núñez. I'll be real. I think that there's a really strong possibility Darwin stays at Liverpool for another season. Unless he's going to go to Saudi, Napoli had a lot of interest in him. And then, literally he didn't, the Elliott one is interesting to me because I was on YouTube a couple days ago and I joined into a stream and someone was talking about Elliott and I said, a viable option for Harvey Elliott, potentially moving forward, maybe be a loan to a Brighton, a team like that where he can go get regular, recurring first-team football and prove himself because we see the talent with Harvey Elliott. It's just the competition at Liverpool. It's hard to break into a team where you're going to get 20 minutes coming off the bench and, potentially, maybe you'll have a chance, but we're up 2-0, I'd like to see him get loaned out. I said that on this guy's stream, and he was like, "Oh no, that makes no sense. We'd either have to, these people they like to think they know everything, but whatever." AC and Juve want Darwin. He makes a lot of sense. He makes a lot of sense going to Serie A. I love Darwin and Elliott. Japanese Núñez redemption arc. So I'd love to know what you guys think in the chat. Am I know the grand mindset towards the end of the season was to get rid of Darwin Núñez. For me, man, I feel good about I want to keep him. I really want to keep him. I'll be honest with you. I think he almost has recognized, look, if I'm going to stay at this club, I'm going to come off the bench. And I feel like this every season where it's the potential for us getting rid of Darwin comes up. And, it obviously doesn't come to fruition. This season, it seemed like a definite that Darwin was out the door. And, I think he's going to stay. I just have a feeling that he's going to stay. Now, granted, I believe he was left off of the team against AC Milan as well. Me too, says Hordar. Yeah, man, I don't know what it is about him in this preseason. It's felt as though, you know what it is about Darwin Núñez? I really like him as a player. Obviously, he misses far too many opportunities. We can talk about that until the cows come home, right? But the thing that I've always liked about Darwin Núñez is he works really, really hard, and he when he's on the pitch, I feel good about him. The issues I have with Darwin Núñez is the bullshit that he does off the pitch. 2 seasons ago, deleting all of the pictures he had with Liverpool when we had several games left. Last season, towards the end of the year. He put out a tweet, I guess, being like, I guess that's why I'm not playing, because we would have had to have given Benfica some sort of add-on if he was to hit a certain number of games. It's when he does stupid stuff like that, and I get it, that is Darwin. He's an eccentric, kind of nutty sort of player. But I don't know. I don't know. I feel really, really good about Darwin Núñez as of late, I'll be honest. And yeah, I don't know. We kind of got a little sidetracked off of the Rodrigo topic. But yeah, I really, really like Darwin. I moving forward, I would not be... I wouldn't be upset if we were to get Darwin Núñez to stay at the club for the upcoming season. Just for the vibes. Like, he has to know he's not going to start. He has to know he's not a viable, option for, especially if we were to buy Isak. He's not a viable option. I'll tell you what, though, for a lot of these guys on Liverpool, the interesting aspect of it is we know nobody's starting at right wing, right? Now, that's locked down by the Egyptian king. But, Salah's got, 2 years left on his contract. It's like, it's going to be interesting. Maybe not this season, but into the next season. If any of these options off of the front three, could potentially be an option that we could have come off the right wing because I think once Salah's contract expires, I do think he will leave. Horder, I never hate our players. Yeah, I can't think of a Liverpool player I've ever hated. I don't think there's ever been any player I've ever hated from Liverpool. Yes, 2 years. Yeah, I think after those 2 years, I do think Salah will probably leave the club. But like I said, he has practically no competition off the right. And I do believe, someone will have to correct me in the comments or in the chat, I do believe it's a African Cup of Nations this year. So we're going to lose Salah. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I do believe there is an African Cup of Nations this season. Do you think we will sell Salah next year? There's a chance. I think a lot of that, Horder, is dependent on, how we will finish this season. I look at Salah, I look at Van Dijk, and 2 years left on both of their contracts, right? If hypothetically, and it looks, I think Liverpool are the odds-on favorites for the Premier League title. We've got to be one of the favorites to win the Champions League as well. If Liverpool, I think, were to go back-to-back in the Premier League, or let's say even win a couple trophies, I wouldn't be surprised if Salah and or Van Dijk at that point decide it's a good time for them to move on from the club, because both of them are getting into their 30s, and if it's like you go back-to-back in the Premier League, or if you win multiple trophies, I think at that point, at that point, it almost like go out on a high to a certain extent. Saudi for 100 mil. I don't think we'll get 100 million for him with 1 year left on his deal. But I do think if he, let's say hypothetically, he's got 1 year left, 50 million. 50 million. I do think. For me, hypothetically, let's say Liverpool win the Prem and the FA Cup. We do a domestic double next season. I'm not gonna say treble because, if any rival fans see this, it's like, oh, they're already talking treble talk. I'm not gonna say that, but I think we're the odds on to win the Premier League. And let's say we win a domestic trophy, we pull a double. I could see both of them looking to leave, and I could see Salah, obviously, with the Saudi Arabia move, and then I could see Van Dijk with a potential MLS move. I think Salah to Saudi has always sounded right, just because the money that he'll get, the money that Saudi will pay, and Van Dijk to the MLS, because especially Van Dijk's a year or two older than Salah as well. He's really into his mid-30s. That just makes, a lot of sense to me, if I'm being honest. But, speaking of Virgil van Dijk, we need another center back. and we need one desperately. Obviously, the target is Mark Gahey, and as we're inching closer to the upcoming season, um, I wonder if we are going to try. The interesting part about the Mark Gahey situation is the fact that it was a talk earlier in the transfer window, and then appeared to kind of die down for a little bit. It appeared to just lose steam. And I always thought it was interesting. I always wondered why it had kind of lost traction. And then I realized today, with the season right around the corner, that we have the Community Shield coming up. And we're going to play the FA Cup winners, and that is Crystal Palace. I wonder, with Crystal Palace coming up in the Community Shield, the likelihood that we are actually going to try to swoop in and pull Gahey in before that game. Or is it an option that Liverpool potentially have touched base with Crystal Palace and Gahey, and they would prefer for that transfer to go through following the Community Shield? But we all know we need a center back because Joe Gomez is frail and frankly just not good enough. All respect to him, he's been a loyal servant for Liverpool, but at a certain point we have to call it as it is. He's just not good enough. He hasn't been good enough for years now at this point. Frankly, I'm surprised that we didn't try to sell Gomez earlier, and we've still been doing this. Mark and Hatto, we can't rely on Gomez. He's made of glass now, as sad as it is to say. I do agree. He's definitely made of glass now. You look at the how we've handled the Joe Gomez situation. He's a player that I think we could have gotten probably $45 million for 2 years ago. And unfortunately now I think that it would be a fraction of the price if we were to look to sell him. It's one that for me, I don't really entirely understand. Forever LFC, why on earth we've kept Joe Gomez just lingering around season after season after season. Like I said, I respect the guy because he's been a loyal servant to the club. But my gosh. Who has ever thought Joe Gomez what was good enough to play at Liverpool when we see what the club has wanted to achieve over the past couple of years? Does anyone actually believe as though he's been good enough? Because for me, I think, like I said, 2 years ago we could have probably got $45 million for him. Now, if we would have gotten $20 million for Joe Gomez, I think that would be reasonable. And that would be a bargain for other teams because, he's still a fairly young player. Maybe they can, get some sort of value out of him. But, Lord, my gosh. I don't understand it. But we need to bring in another center back because we can't rely on him. And we need to bring in a center back, at the level of a Mark Gahey because we need to ensure that we're going to have him in the upcoming, the following season. Because let's be honest here, guys, he's going to go to Real Madrid. Ibrahima Konate. It's gonna happen. Who are you talking about? Decent season last year, Joe Gomez? Or are you talking about Mark Gahey? Yeah, we need to bring in a guy that we're obviously going to look at as a replacement for Ibrahima Konate. I think the club knows that too. I think that I don't think the club are dumb enough to look at how the Trent Alexander-Arnold situation has panned out and not think to themselves, look, we're going to have to figure out this Ibu Konate situation because it's going to happen. He's just going to go. And when it comes down to it, people will say we're being a little too harsh on him, like the plastic fans that said the fans were too harsh on Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't agree. I think anyone that takes it to the umpteenth level and is abusive to these guys, I think you have something wrong with you, if I'm going to be honest. But when it comes down to just typically having general criticism, acting as though you're the local lad for season after season, and then deciding you want to go play for Real Madrid, and dropping it towards the end of the season, then you're posing with the Premier League trophy and at the parade, and you're like, oh, the perfect send off. wasn't a perfect send-off for you. I'm going on a tirade about Trent now, or I'm supposed to be focused on the topics I have at hand. But Mark Gahey, we definitely need to get Mark Gahey. Horder said he had a decent season last year. Joe, I would have to disagree, man. I just don't think Joe Gomez is good enough. And remember this guy from under 20 UK. He is playing in France with Toulouse. Pardon my spelling. Someone mentioned this in the stream the other day, Herder. I know who you're going to say. He's a really tall guy. I wasn't familiar with him, but someone mentioned him the other day in the chat. The center back who plays for Toulouse. Charlie Cresswell. That's the guy, the Englishman who plays for Toulouse. If we go long in all competitions this season, it's max 64 games. We can't expect Canate and VVD can play every game. So center backs are a must, to be honest. We need two. We need two center backs. We need a center back at the quality of Gahey, and with those other three. And then we need another one who's going to be solid. Yeah. Horder said yes. Yeah, that Cresswell kid. I've seen someone mentioned about him the other day in the chat, Horder, as well. But Forever LFC, I completely agree with you, bro. We need to bring in at least 2 to 3 reinforcements at center back. It's a must at this point. It's a must. And especially like I said earlier in the stream, when you take into consideration the fact that Ibrahima Konate is definitely going to leave at the end of the season to go to Real Madrid on a free, which I'm getting a little sick and tired of that dirtbag club doing that. Not only to us, but other clubs. They did it to PSG with Mbappe. They're going to continue doing it. And then, what's so interesting about these idiots who do this with Real? They better, Trent, who's going to have a garbage stint at Real. They get put on these 6-year contracts, and you better hope you don't have a dip in form. You better hope you don't have a guy do you like Doku did you at Man City, because then, you're just on a 6-year contract at Real. You're going to waste away. But, nevertheless, Van Dijk could leave at the end of the season with 1 year left, and we get a transfer for him if we win some silverware. And I think it's likely that Ibu Konate is going to leave as well. So we need to start planning for not only the near future, but farther in the future. 2 seasons from now, a season from now, we need to start planning for that. And I think a guy like Gahey, is an option. One thing that someone mentioned in the chat on Saturday that I didn't take into consideration when it came to Mark Gahey, he's shorter than the likes of Van Dijk and Konate, which we're used to. Van Dijk and Konate are both 6'4". I think Mark Gahey's only 6 foot. It's not like he's a very short guy. But, with the style of play that we've had, we've come accustomed to having these very, very tall guys play. Losing, potentially a 6'4" center back and replacing him with a 6 foot center back, let alone if we lose 2 6'4" center backs, it's going to be something to adjust to for sure. But that's pretty much all I had to say with the center back talk. I'm gonna move on to the last topic of the stream today. But he is a leader. You talking about Gahey? Because Gahey is a leader for sure, and I'm very, very impressed with Gahey. It's just one thing that it's just one thing to think about, that he's just a little bit shorter than the center backs that we've grown accustomed to over the past couple of seasons. But I do agree he's a leader, and that's important. And you look at it, with 2 seasons left on Virgil's deal, there's a potential that he's not going to be around as long as we would like. Unfortunately, Father Time catches up, but we do need a leader to come in at that center back position. I am going to move on to Isak, but if anyone has any further center back topics that you want to talk about before I move on to Isak, please leave it down below in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. Also, if you guys are still with me, make sure to like, subscribe, join in the chat, click that notification bell so all of you know when I make a new video. As well, don't forget to look at my social medias. I got them filtering up above here. I have a TikTok that's doing quite well actually right now. I believe it was at 80,000 views when I started the stream. Popping off on TikTok. What a weird little... I prefer YouTube, but I unfortunately have more success on... 87,000 on TikTok. Isak coming. That's what I like to see, Hordar. Isak coming. When do we think Isak will come? That is the golden question. I think it's a matter of time, especially... I know a lot of people have been concerned with the fact that Newcastle might be trying to stop the move of Alexander Isak. I don't think they're going to be able to complete. Thank you, Limo. Just found you now. Absolutely. No need to thank me, Hoarder. Thank you for joining, man. I love having you on the stream, brother. Thank you, man. Alexander Isak, yes, of course. Going to be interesting to see how Newcastle deal with this entire situation. I think the fact that they've been interested in the likes of Sesko is an indication that potentially he could be out at Newcastle or maybe that Newcastle rather have just come to grips with the fact that Isak is going to be leaving the club, because if they expected him to stay, or if they expected to keep him for hostage, as some Liverpool fans have said that they've been trying to do, I don't think that they would be looking for another striker option. The problem is, I wonder if they're going to keep him hostage until they have another option in at center back. And included in that is the fact that everyone seems to turn down Newcastle. It's become quite clear this transfer window that while Newcastle have improved over the past couple of seasons, it's not an advantageous place for a lot of these players that they want to live in. And when another option comes down the line, I know obviously they signed Elanga, but we want Sesko to Newcastle, not Manchester United. Absolutely, because I would not want to see a front line of Sesko, Mbomo, and Cunha. I think that's a very, very good improvement for Manchester United. Or Vissa, yeah. Vissa could be going to Newcastle. We'll have to wait and see. I think if Vissa goes to Newcastle, I think Brentford are getting relegated. They're losing far too many players. They've lost their manager. Forever LFC said, we have had such an absolutely brilliant summer transfer window so far that I'm sure FSG, Slot, Edwards, Hughes have a few more aces up their sleeves. Yet Isak will be a Liverpool player by the weekend. I do agree. I think we'll get the here we go by the weekend. I don't know if the announcement will happen by the weekend, but I think we'll have the here we go by the weekend for sure. I mean, it's already Monday, and I think that they're, based on what I've been reading from the likes of Romano, from the likes of David Ornstein, it seems as though there's been a lot of advancement in the conversation, and the potential for him to come. We'll have to wait and see, but I do certainly agree. Maybe the signing's announced by the weekend, who knows? But I do think we'll probably get the here we go from Fabrizio Romano, by the weekend. I think that's for sure. Will they have some more aces up their sleeve? I think the Isak thing is so far into... I think Liverpool are going to want to really expedite the Isak thing because of the center back need. I think that they're going to want to spend the money that they have set aside for Alexander Isak, and then their attentions are going to be turned towards potentially bringing in, a center back or two. Hopefully two. But, the only one who really I've seen really be linked with Liverpool is Mark Gahey. It will be interesting, like I said, if that happens before the Community Shield, but we'll have to wait and see. It depends on Newcastle getting a striker. I agree, Horder. I do agree, but unfortunately, when it comes to not unfortunately, like Newcastle need to get over themselves to a certain extent. You know, for God's sakes, like he wants to leave, and we know where he wants to go. Everyone in the world knows Isak wants to leave, and we know where he wants to go play. Take that money that we're going to give you, and then you can invest it into another striker option. I don't understand why they're keeping them hostage to a certain extent. I don't think it's to the extent that people are making it out to be, but I certainly think that they're not going to allow that move to happen until they have another striker lined up. And we'll have to wait and see. Maybe it's Vissa, maybe it's Sesko. I know that Sesko's been linked with Manchester United. The thing is, problem is Manchester United is such a dumpster fire. But you see a lot of these guys coming into United. You see Cunha, you see Mbomo. If these guys come in and have an impact and they start, turning results around for United, the United supporters are really, really going to feel like them a lot. They're gonna think about them in a very high regard, and I fear as a Liverpool fan. I don't fear United because we're gonna be far better than them, but I think that there's gonna be a drastic improvement in United's place in the table this season. With them just having to focus on domestic football, I think people often won't really take into consideration the fact that just having to worry about the league, the FA Cup, and the Carabao Cup, that's so much. Yes, player power. Do a Coutinho. United don't have a plan. United. The one thing that I have been impressed with United this transfer window, though, Horder, is the fact that they've gone after players who performed well in the Premier League already. Bringing in the likes of Cunha and Bomo, these are guys who perform well in the Premier League. So I don't think there's going to be as much of a concern as to how they're going to perform, because they've done well. They will be lucky being in top 10. I don't know, man. I think United, if I'm going to be honest with you, dude, I think United will probably finish 7th or 8th. 7th or 8th. Maybe they'll squeak out a 6th. I don't think that they have the full roster, to finish top 4 or even 5th. But the interesting thing about United is, what is the expectations of Ruben Amorim? Like, if United got 8th, that's an improvement from last season, but compared to what United's expectations have been historically, how bad is that? No way. I'm sure you're probably saying no way to me saying they'll get 7th or 8th. I think they may, man. I think the fact that they're only going to have to worry about Liverpool, I love it. I think the fact that they're only going to have to worry about domestic football is really, really going to be in their favor, dude. I gotta be honest. I think I think that gets downplayed. So, those were the topics that I had for today. So if there's anyone else in the chat that has any topics that you would like to talk about, please let me know before I hop off stream. Anything Liverpool related, football related, Premier League related, anything you want for me to talk about right now, let me know down below in the chat. I'd like to, at the end of my streams, just kind of freestyle, some topics that, people might be interested in. Or not even freestyle, rather just give the opportunity to any of you guys that are watching me. I'm so grateful. So crazy to come on here. I know it's not that big. Today it's a Monday evening, but it's so cool to come on, just have people, chat about football, chat about Liverpool, all those things. So if there's anything, let me know in the chat. I'll anything Liverpool. It doesn't even have to be Liverpool football related, Premier League related. It could be anything. Any question you have for me, let me know. Looks like we got about 8 people with us right now, so it's going down. I think people. This is the point though that you see some people they start to dip because they're like, oh, it's the end of the stream. I get it. Totally understandable. Totally understandable. You know, I didn't expect a lot from a Monday night stream. You know, only gets bigger. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, for sure. It was great on Saturday. We had like 20 some odd people with us and stuff. You know, if any of you are with me right now, you know, make sure to subscribe. I go live a couple times a week. I put out full length shorter length YouTube videos throughout the week as well. Follow my TikTok. I do quite well on there. Twitter as well, or X, whatever you want to call it. It's always been Twitter to me, but however you like to do it. For sure. All right, guys. I'm not seeing I am here from Iceland, dude. That is awesome. What was the clap you guys did in the Euros that year? Was it this? Iceland, man. What's the time over there in Iceland, Horder? You gotta let me know, man. I'm pronouncing your name right too. You got if I'm not, let me know, man. And let me know if this has been buggy at all. You're probably saying huh to the. Yes. Awesome, man. It's tough. The chat is always just a little bit. It's 12:27 a.m. Yeah. So you're 4 hours ahead of us. That in the States. It's 8:28 right now. 8:28 p.m. But all right, Horder, thank you for being online with us tonight, brother. I really appreciate it. Everyone else, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, check out my other social medias. It's in the description. It's also been filtered above the top of the stream. Stay tuned. I'll probably be streaming again sometime this week. I'm going to try to also get another weekend stream. Like I said, don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to be doing watch-alongs during the season. All that jazz. Thank you guys so much. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.